An explosive lawsuit came down, a couple of hours ago. Brian Flores, who was fired late last year as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, dropped a discrimination lawsuit against the National Football League. In this 58-page lawsuit, he says that the NFL is practicing racism against black coaches, conducting sham interviews with these black coaches. He specifically calls out 3 NFL teams for their actions. Not only that, in his lawsuit, he claims that Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, offered to pay him $100,000 for every game the Dolphins lost to essentially tank to improve their draft position. In this lawsuit, he says that when he began to win late in the season, he began to find out that Ross was miffed at him and angry at him. He also claims that Ross wanted him to recruit a top quality quarterback, which was against the NFL rules. It was tampering. Flores says he refused to do so. Folks, in this lawsuit filed in Manhattan federal court, he also claims that when he interviewed with the Denver Broncos, at the Denver Broncos brass, including Hall of Famer John Elway, who runs personnel for the team, came to the meeting an hour late, and they all admitted they were hungover because they'd been drinking the previous night. He also blasts the New York Giants for giving him a sham interview. He includes in his lawsuit text messages between him and Bill Belichick, his former coach at the New England Patriots, where Flores used to be on staff, where he says that Belichick told him that that word out of Buffalo and New York that Brian was the guy. But he texted him back, it was the other Brian who was hired by the Giants and not Brian Flores. And then Belichick said, sorry, I effed this up, double checked and misread the text. I think they are naming Brian Dable. I'm sorry about that. And again, he blasts them. So he's specifically blasting the Giants, the Dolphins, and the Broncos. The Giants say they are pleased with the process, pleased and confident with their process. They say that Brian Flores was a candidate up until the 11th hour. But he's saying no. This is again, a huge interview. Now, the Broncos, they claim the interview with Brian Flores lasted 3.5 hours and was conducted by 5 team executives. This is the statement that they sent. It's on ESPN. Pages of detailed notes, analysis, and evaluations from our interview demonstrate the depth of our conversation and sincere interest in Mr. Flores as a head coaching candidate. Our process was thorough and fair to determine the most qualified candidate for our head coaching position. The Broncos will vigorously defend the integrity and values of our organization and its employees from such baseless and disparaging claims. Of course, and then, of course, Denver, they hired Vic Fangio for the job. And so the law firm he's working with, Wigdor Law LLP, they say they want this lawsuit to, quote, shine a light on the racial injustices that take place inside the NFL. There are a number of things that Flores wants to see happen, which include increased influences of black individuals in hiring, increasing the objectivity of hiring and terminating GMs, head coaches, and coordinators, increasing the number of black coordinators, also incentivizing the hiring and retention of black coaches and GMs and coordinators, transparency of pay for GMs, head coaches, and coordinators, and other issues as well. And it seeks unspecified damages from the NFL. This is a significant lawsuit, DeMario, because first off, there are 4 positions still available. One of them is, of course, Miami Dolphins, where he was fired from. There are 3 other head coaching jobs that are still available. Houston Texans, where Brian Flores was interviewed, Jacksonville Jaguars, Minnesota Vikings. And so he's not even waiting for this process to play out. I mean, for him to file this lawsuit, what this says is, I'm burning all the boats. Anybody knows, look, if you file a lawsuit against the NFL alleging racism, they ain't going to consider you for another head coaching job. I would be absolutely shocked if one of these teams hires him. This sounds like he wants to go forward. He wants discovery. He wants depositions to expose what's happening in the NFL.
Man, I only wish I was the lawyer that he called to file this lawsuit. As you know, I'm suing the University of Iowa football team right as we speak for 13 black football players. And it's the same thing that Brian Flores is saying. I don't care what the repercussions are going to be. No surrender, no retreat. I respect this brother for doing this because, as you stated, he's going to be blackballed from anything to do with the NFL. But we know what he's saying is true. And we've been waiting for so long for someone to stand up who's on the inside, speak the truth, and use the law. Title VII is a powerful, powerful employment law that can be utilized the way it's being utilized. Also, he's probably utilizing 1981, Section 1981. I haven't had a chance to review the lawsuit yet. I know what he's saying is accurate because I've been in this industry for a long time, been around sports at a high level for a long time, as you know, Roland. And so this is just a powerful, powerful, powerful lawsuit to bring it this time, right before the Super Bowl, and with the text message. I did see the front page of the lawsuit when I sat down right before we came on. The first thing they have is the text from Belichick saying, hey, they're going to hire this other guy. Yes, what you have on the screen right now. So if he's saying that he already received this text right before they actually interviewed him, they have some big problems. I salute this brother. I hope he has plenty of money in the bank. I hope he's prayed up. I hope his law firm is racked and ready to roll because the NFL will do everything they can to defend themselves. And I hope all the other black coaches who've been discriminated against, black GMs, will come out the woodwork. And let me say one other thing about it, Roland. We need so much more than just more black coaches and black GMs. And you say it all the time, Roland, we need black ownership. We need black ownership. That's the thing. It's not about diversity. It's about equity. And the equity is we built the league. We sustain the league as black players, over 75% black players. And there should be black ownership and black people making those decisions. And hopefully this lawsuit can have a better ending for the totality than the Colin Kaepernick situation had for how the NFL actually does stuff on a substantive level.
Well, on that particular point there, Teresa, Colin Kaepernick sued the NFL as well, eventually settling for $8 million. There were a lot of people who were very frustrated by that because they thought that his whole goal was to expose the NFL. Well, you don't do that when you settle. For what Brian Flores is doing is huge. I mean, he is literally putting his career on the line. In fact, in the ESPN story, this is what he said. Now, mind you, Flores is 41 years old. Okay, many could say that he was going to get another shot in the NFL. This was his quote: "God has gifted me with a special talent to coach the game of football, but the need for change is bigger than my personal goals. In making the decision to file the class action complaint today, I understand that I may be risking coaching the game that I love and that has done so much for my family and me. My sincere hope is that by standing up against systemic racism in the NFL, others will join me to ensure that positive change is made for generations to come."
Absolutely. I mean, look, Brian is setting a precedent that is very necessary during these times. Obviously, there needs to be more and more individuals like him, but we also need to stand with him. And part of it is people know that there has been an ongoing problem within the NFL for decades. And for you to have someone who, with his Brian's type of background, his acumen, his experience, and knowing what it takes to move up the level to where he is, and then to identify the issues even on a broader scale. I think when we start to look at the Rooney Rule of the compliance that the NFL has charged for, social equity across the board, and to make sure that best practices are actually held with black and brown people that for hiring, we still have these issues where it's still not being upheld. And since it's not being upholded, we need someone like Brian. We need other, not just black and brown coaches. We need white coaches to stand up for that same rule, because again, we are a part of the overall, and us as in black and brown people who are playing the game, who are getting injured by the game. We are seeing so many players step up ever since George Floyd and the rest. I think the pandemic has woken everybody up to some of the injustices that are happening. But I think overall, like Colin, like Brian, and like many others that will come after them, change will happen as long as we stand with these good brothers, and also just take charge against the system that is essentially making money off of us.
Look, Mustafa, after Brian Flores was fired, Troy Vincent, former NFL player who actually is a VP for the NFL, said this. He said there was a double standard when it comes to the black coaches keeping their jobs. This is what he said in this article that was in the Washington Post. He said that they can't shy away from how the league treats black coaches after they only coach for a few short years, or even they have short tenures. He cites Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell, Steve Wilkes, Tyrone Willingham, even when he was at Notre Dame. He said there's a double standard, and we've seen that. And you talk about the appetite for what's acceptable. Let's go back to Tyrone Willingham at Notre Dame, who was fired after a winning season. Coach Dungy was let go in Tampa Bay after a winning season. So we have seen this. Coach Wilkes, just a few years prior, was let go after 1 year. And then the things that happened Monday. There's a double standard. I don't think that is something that we should shy away from. But that is all part of some of the things that we need to fix in the system. We want to hold everyone to why does one, let's say, get the benefit of the doubt to be able to build or take bumps and bruises in this process of getting a franchise turned around when others are not afforded that latitude. We see it at the collegiate level, and we've seen that in the history at the professional level. I mean, look at the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor is their head coach. The Bengals did not fire him after 2 losing seasons. Year 3, they're going to the Super Bowl. But here's the deal that people have to understand. Troy Vincent works for the NFL. When you say work for the NFL, he doesn't work for Roger Goodell. Yes, he reports to Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell works for the owners. The NFL is owned by 32 people, all white men except one, Pakistani American, Shahid Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is the reality. They run the NFL. They control the NFL. They sign off on who gets to be the head coach, team president, general manager. We've seen this cycle. 2 black GMs have been hired. You have, of course, the brother Jason Wright with the Washington football team. He is the team president, first time in history. The NFL, when it comes to the executive suite, it is essentially white men only.
I mean, the owners can make the change. They can almost overnight make the change if they decided to, because, they're signing the checks and people are going to follow their lead. It's really that simple. We may not find that in lots of other spaces, but when it comes to the NFL, there's a very clear line of how change can actually happen. So if they wanted to have, more black coaches, it could happen pretty much, overnight. Yeah, of course, there has to be a process that folks go through. We're interviewing those types of things. We want to have more GMs. They could make that happen. They have no problem in going out and finding black bodies to be on the football field, catching the football, sometimes now throwing the football or running the football. But, when it comes to giving the opportunity for folks to actually use their mental capabilities as a head coach has to do, then they have a more difficult time in being able to evolve and to accept that as a part of a 21st century NFL. And we have some responsibility also because we have to continue to push to hold people accountable.
And look, here's the deal. One of the things that I said with Colin Kaepernick, you sort of had this loose confederation of people who were calling for a boycott, don't watch NFL games, don't buy jerseys, don't wear them as well. Well, here's one of the things, DeMario. It was never organized. It was now you had some pockets, some cities, but you did not have a consistent effort to boycott. So what Brian Flores is going to need, he's going to need backup. The question is, will he get backup from the players? Will he get backup from other black coaches? Will he get backup from white coaches? And how is the black community also going to respond? Also the Latino community, because he's Afro-Latino, how are they going to respond as well?
I mean, you really hit it on the nail right there, Roland. When you talk boycotts and all that stuff, that's great. But the NFL players have a union. Now, we talk a lot on this show about the power of police unions. We just talked about it last segment, and how police unions are able to control police departments and cities. Where you have an NFL union that is filled with black NFL players, that they should be in better control of the NFL's policies, in my opinion. I got some good friends that work over at the NFLPA, and I know they're doing hard work each and every day. But I would like to see the black players be stronger on these issues. And then the black coaches, they don't have as much leverage as those black players. But I definitely want to see the black players be stronger and the union be stronger on these issues. Because as Brother Mustafa stated, these owners, they have all the power. The only people that can really check them are the players.
Yes.
People are going to go to football games. Football games are going to be packed. It's just what it's going to be. People are going to watch football on TV. That's what it's going to be. It's the greatest live entertainment shows in the world. The most drama-filled, unscripted in the world is football. It is the passion of America. But the NFL black players have the leverage. We need to get to our players, educate them, work with them. For instance, I'm seeing some of you have seen during the football games these commercials where they're talking about inequality and they got a brother dancing and the music. Like,
and they also have painted in the end zone in racism.
What is that? That is not moving the dial. It takes all of us putting a decal on the back of the helmet. We need to be able to, our brothers to be able to say, that is not enough. That is not moving the dial. That is not improving the lives of my community, giving our people better equity and opportunities that we deserve. That's the type of conversations we need to have with the NFLPA. That's the type of conversations we need to have with people that have influence over the NFL.
It is quite interesting Mustafa, that you have this lawsuit filed, and again, this season, this is what you saw all throughout the NFL right here, in racism in the end zone. But then they get hit with a racism lawsuit by one of their black coaches.
I mean, come on now. We know that that's window dressing. That's exactly what it is. Because when you peel it back and when you find, one black coach, or maybe we'll be blessed to have 2 or 3, and then we start to go throughout all these positions of power and influence that actually can make real change happen, then what we find is that they have not yet ended racism. So I'm very thankful to Brother Flores for, on the beginning of Black History Month, to make sure that an institution as large and as economically influential as the NFL is being called out, a spotlight placed on them, and saying that if you truly want to end racism, then let's get down to the hard work.
Teresa, the thing that we got to think about here is that folks talk about the Rooney Rule, which calls for the NFL team to interview at least one minority candidate. What folks don't realize is that it was Johnny Cochran and attorney Cyrus Meary. They were the ones who threatened to sue the NFL as a result. So this goes back to almost 2 decades. Now, many people have complained that these teams have gotten around the rule by having these sham interviews. Brian Flores has talked about that. Okay, fine, just throw in a black candidate and we'll deal with that. The Fritz Pollard Alliance, which is tasked with trying to help these teams with it, they've complained about teams circumventing this. We've had examples where I remember when Jerry Jones was hiring a head coach, he already knew he was going to hire Bill Parcells. And they did this sham interview with different coaches. And then they brought in Sherman Lewis, who was the offensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers, and a bright mind, star. They came in. He had an amazing interview. Oh my God, it was wonderful. Sherman Lewis never became a head coach in the NFL. White boys who were offensive coordinators left and right were becoming head coaches. That brother never got a shot. And so now Johnny Cochran has since passed away. Cyrus Meary is still alive. I called him and texted him coming into the show today. He hit me back. Hopefully I can try to connect with him, because what he said then was, it's clear They're not going to move without a lawsuit. And this is the thing that I keep trying to tell African Americans. People were complaining about, again, us going after advertisers. People complain in other fields. Teresa, you can't show me an example in American history where black people got stuff just because. The fact of the matter is, we've had to shout, yell, scream, threaten lawsuits, act a fool to get white folks to do what's right in America. And that's what Brian Flores is here saying. I got to sue y'all because otherwise you ain't going to do right by us.
And honestly, it looks like that's the American way to do it. I mean, if we have to be the Brian Flores, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X of past and present time, we have to look at, some of the systematic issues that has caused us to even get to this place of where we are continuously fighting for position, fighting for business, fighting for contracting. It's like, unfortunately, with Black and brown communities and individuals that are trying to even flourish their businesses, they have to almost be like crabs in a barrel in order to get something done, or it's almost like we're begging, or we have to have a reduced rate in order for our business to be on the same level as everything else. It's interesting that we still have to, again, have these conversations going into probably when we started the new millennium, and then now we're, in 2022. But again, it takes the leaders that nobody is really, they're thinking everything is great. And I see, like, when we start looking at some of these interviews that are taking place from the organizations and some of the statements that are going out, like, oh, we went through the process. But then we hear a man like Brian Flores who's like, I went to dinner, and, I had to do the dog and pony show, and they've already made their decision. And, it's disheartening because it's like you prepare, and it's assumingly, we're hoping for a fair and just process, but it still doesn't work. So overall, it just has to be a better system, but knowing that the system that we're in is America, and then that system is essentially, if they don't want to hear us, then probably just put us in our right and just position without all the fanfare.
And the people who are now also going to be on front and center, Mario, are players. What you going to do? Are you going to say something, or are you going to say, hey, man, ain't my thing?
I think it just really depends who the player is. In my experience working with players for almost 20 years, many of them was focused on their craft. And you can't blame anybody for being focused on their craft. But now if they got more information, have more exposure, I think you will see more players step up. Now, what's interesting about the Brian Flores case also is this guy was a systems guy, okay? You got to understand, to be a young brother to get where he's going, I mean, he was doing everything that the NFL wanted him to do. He was doing everything the coaches wanted him to do to get to that particular level. This means he did all of that. He still got treated like that Jay-Z song about OJ. So it's just a good lesson that we all can learn and remember to make sure that we are crossing our I's, dotting our I's, crossing our T's, keeping the receipts as he's done with emails and text messages, and don't be afraid to push the envelope. And understand that, unfortunately, it may cost you some type of retaliation. You will probably suffer some consequences, but it may be necessary for the greater good. So not everybody is set up to be on the front line. Everybody is set up to be able to take all the arrows and the shots that's going to come their way. But he hopefully has some players in his corner that can stand with him, and hopefully that law firm, which the little bit of the complaint that I've seen so far is written tremendously. I've applauded the law firm, and again, I'm looking to get the next phone call to bring the next historic case.
Back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Like, wow, Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?